What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. We are talking 32 teams in 32 days. Today is day 9. We are moving down south in the AFC. We are talking about the Tennessee Titans. So we've already finished up the AFC North, the AFC East. And like I said, I'm excited to break down this AFC South because we got some teams that are kind of on the upswing, some teams with some new faces, and the Titans are a lot of the same, and they brought in a huge name that we'll talk about here in a second. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this team in particular. When we look at last season on this very podcast, I predicted the Tennessee Titans would go 10-6, and that was almost spot on. They ended up going 11-5. I said on this podcast that they would try to get somebody late in the game, real late in off season, real early into the season. They end up getting Jadeveon Clowney in that spot. He wasn't the piece to put them over the top, but they kind of try to fill that need in this offseason, which we're going to talk about. So if you're not familiar, we talk about what the offseason looked like, the additions, the re-signings, the departures, the draft picks, strengths, weaknesses, and all that fun stuff. And I end up making a record prediction. So let's start with this. When we talk about some of the additions and re-signings for the Tennessee Titans, the big name that they grabbed this offseason was Julio Jones, the future Hall of Fame receiver. He's going to be playing on the opposite side of A.J. Brown, and fireworks are going to be coming out of this offense, man. I'm pretty excited. As soon as I heard Julio might be dealt, I said the whole time I was hoping Tennessee grabbed him because I think he can take that offense to that final step, man. They have Derrick Henry, one of the few backs to ever rush for 2,000 yards. A.J. Brown is just a man-child. And Julio Jones, his resume speaks for itself. So they grab Julio Jones. They get a Josh Reynolds, who I actually think is kind of an underrated guy, can take the top off that defense. Anthony Firkser, Danico Autry, Jayon Brown, Bud Dupree, Janoris Jenkins, and Kevin Johnson. When we look at Bud, he signed big contract. I'm a Pittsburgh guy. I like Bud Dupree, and I actually feel like one of the things that he does really, really well that's super under the radar is he's a great run stopper. So they're definitely not going to drop off in that category from losing Jadeveon Clowney. As far as a pass rusher, I do think Bud Dupree is a better pass rusher than Jadeveon Clowney. They paid him to be that guy who's going to get 12, 14 sacks a season. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that by himself without, being opposite of a TJ Watt or something like that. But I do like Bud Dupree. Hopefully he comes back full strength after blowing out his knee. Jayon Brown, very, very solid guy. Janoris Jenkins is a kind of a hit or miss guy. He'll have one game with 2 picks and a pick 6, and he'll get toasted 3 times in the next game. So what the Jackrabbit can do for Tennessee is going to be interesting. And then Kevin Johnson is a very, very solid DB. As far as departures, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, Desmond King, and Kenny Vaccaro. I think their biggest loss out of those guys is Desmond King. I kind of think he's one of those glue guys who covers up a lot of problems that you didn't really kind of know was there. Malcolm Butler's a guy who's probably on a bigger contract than it necessarily needed to be worth. Adoree Jackson kind of never lived up to that height. So, when I look at Adoree compared to a Janoris Jenkins, I don't think it's a huge loss. The Jonnu Smith departure is going to be interesting. He never really hit the production that a lot of people wanted from a Jonnu Smith, but I do think he's a very solid player. And they were in desperate needs. When they got a Julio Jones, they needed somebody to play opposite of A.J. Brown. After losing Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, they just didn't really have any other great pass catchers. That's why I think it was such a big pickup, and I think it made a lot of sense. When we talk about draft picks, this seems like a draft where it could either be an absolute home run for Tennessee or a pretty bad draft. And I'm kind of on the fence. So with their first pick, they end up getting Caleb Farley. I look at it this way. Caleb Farley's probably the best corner in this year's draft if he had a clean medical record. Unfortunately, he's dealt with some issues, back issues, ankle issues, and so on, so on, so on. The dude can flat out fly. The dude can cover anybody. It's just, can he stay healthy? Is this something that's going to linger over his career? I'm hoping not. I don't think so. I think this guy can come in and make an immediate impact with just his athletic profile, helps him kind of learn on the job and recover after getting beat. I think he can be an instant upgrade at DB. Dylan Radins, who I really, really like. He's a mauler. I think he's going to fit in perfectly with this Tennessee offense. He's a downhill kind of guy. We saw him protect San Francisco's quarterback Trey Lance at North Dakota State. They get Monty Rice, Elijah Molden, Des Fitzpatrick, and a guy, for me being from the Pittsburgh area, Rashad Weaver, I think is a guy who is a boom or bust guy. They end up getting him in the 6th round, I believe. I'm a huge fan. I think he has all the talent. It's just kind of putting it all together. So I think he can kind of contribute early on more than what people are expecting. As far as team strengths, when I look at it, man, offensive firepower. I mentioned Derrick Henry. I mentioned AJ Brown. I mentioned Julio Jones. But let's not forget about Ryan Tannehill. He came to Tennessee. He completely reinvented himself after he got away from Adam Gase, who ruins everybody's career. He comes to Tennessee and he's just been so solid. And you know what? Solid actually probably a shade at Ryan Tannehill because he's been way better than that. He's been a guy who's just consistently delivered. This just feels like where he should have been his entire career in this kind of offense. This offensive team, the line's strong. Derrick Henry, Julio, AJ, Tannehill. I mean, this team is so strong on offense. But then when we jump to the weakness, and I think it's the counterpart, the opposite side of the ball, they still have kind of an unproven front seven. Bud Dupree is their best pass rusher. I think he's slightly overrated. Like I said, he signed that #1 elite pass rusher money. I don't think he's that exactly. I do really like him, but I just think it's a little bit too much. But what they're going to need is they're going to need one of their other high picks to really step up and help play opposite of Bud Dupree, because then you're going to get more money out of Bud Dupree than him playing by himself. And what I mean by that is if you get, Simmons or Landry to kind of finally blossom into, what we thought they were going to be or what we think they still can be, I think that's going to be, very, very important for this Tennessee defense because we named, Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, Desmond King, some of the guys they lost in that secondary. What helps a young secondary or an inexperienced secondary is getting pass rush. So if they can kind of hurry that quarterback up, it's going to help protect on that back end. And like I said, man, I think Weaver's a guy who can come in and end up getting, 5 to 6 sacks in limited snaps. So it's a weakness right now. I think it could turn to being, either an average or even a strength for this team, but they need some guys to step up. The biggest question mark to me is I'm going to go right back to that weakness and talk about the defense. It's not that they have to be great. Can they be enough? Can they be average? They don't need to be top 5, top 10, anything like that. What they need to be is like around that 16 to 20 mark because of that offense. So what I'm saying is if they're letting up 40 every other week, they're in trouble. They're going to have problems. But if they can kind of, keep it within a close game, that offense, if it has a lead in the fourth quarter, they're the best running back in football, bar none. If that offense is down 2 scores, they have enough firepower to come back and win that game. But what the defense can't do is they can't let up 30 points a night because that's too tough on that offense. You're asking them to play at a very high level for the entire season. It's going to wear some guys out, and you don't want to put a ton of miles on Derrick Henry early in the season, even though we've never seen him slow down. But you never know. So, with the biggest questions, the strengths, the weaknesses, all that fun stuff talked about, I'm going to go to my record prediction. And I'm actually going to go back to the well, and I'm going to say basically the same record I said last year. Last year I said 10-6. Now they have a 17th game. I'm saying 10-7 this year. I think early in the season they have some stuff to kind of figure out. Julio still picking up the offense. They're still going to need like a third receiver to kind of step up, whether that's from the tight end position or from the slot spot. I'm not exactly sure. Defense, a lot of new faces meshing. So I think they're going to be a lot like last year, come on stronger and stronger and stronger. And this is a team that you just don't want to play when it comes December or January when it's cold out, because this team does not care. Ryan Tannehill can beat you so many different ways. Derrick Henry can just run around you, through you, and he's not going to slow down. Whether it's his first touch of the game or his 30th touch of the game, he's not going to slow down. And then AJ Brown, Julio Jones, just look at those two guys. Look at what they've done. I don't need to talk about it. I said 10-7. I think they ended up, I think the Colts might finish a little bit worse than that if they do kind of come out to a 10-7. I think Tennessee ends up winning that tiebreaker. So I do think the Titans win this division. As far as bold predictions, I was kind of looking at the roster. I was thinking about it. And my bold prediction is I think Ryan Tannehill finishes in the top 5 for MVP voting. I don't think this is unrealistic. I think this is very possible. He's a guy, like I said, I think's kind of been flying under the radar because we're so used to him at Miami being very average or below average. I think with that next pass catcher, another high level guy, play action's always there with Derrick Henry. So I think Ryan Tannehill might even get this team to a 12-5. But I think he's going to be in the conversation of having a very elite year and cementing himself in that group. So that's what my bold prediction is. Guys, please let me know what you guys think of the episode. If you like it, if you dislike it, if you agree with me, disagree with me, all that fun stuff, drop it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know what you think I got right or wrong. I love discussing football, man. That's why I do this. So drop in the comments what you guys think. If you guys want to support the show, I really, really appreciate it. Click that like button, subscribe. It's the only way we can grow. So I appreciate any kind of support you guys can get me. And guys, I'll see you guys next time.